I had no idea.
Well, you look good.
But it is interesting though, because as we think about what's going on today, and as we even think about what's happening in Los Angeles City Council, we go back to the history of Brotherhood Crusade. Brotherhood Crusade was founded 54 years ago by the Black Congress. But what's interesting is the reason the Black Congress was formed was because the city council back then was trying to eliminate people of color from the city of Los Angeles. Ironically, the city of Los Angeles was founded by 42 individuals of color. But yet, here's the city council trying to eliminate them from the city. However, two executives from Cummins Diesel, right, of all places, realized, you know what, if we do this, we're going to destroy this city. And so they went to the Bay Area and recruited a gentleman by the name of Dr. Walter Vermont and asked him to come and organize people of color in the city of Los Angeles to be able to overcome, defeat this effort, right? And so Dr. Vermont came down to LA, organized what was the Black Congress, members of the Black Congress, as they were moving forward, determined that, you know, there's something greater that we need to do, right? And then the true irony came into play. And that irony was, you know, at the time, for services and organizations that serve people of color, they weren't getting funded, right? And two of those major services were going to have to close their doors because they just didn't have enough funding. And so Walter Vermont mortgaged his home, got $15,000 from the Bank of America, and took that $15,000, founded Brotherhood Crusade as a nonprofit organization, and then disseminated money to those two organizations so they can keep their doors open so they can continue to serve their people in the community. Right? So Brotherhood Crusade was founded out of the Black Congress and out of that effort to be able to make sure that we continue to help the people of color in the community. With that though, you recognize that, you know, we have to help people help themselves, right? So those of us who have to help those who don't, so we can collectively grow and develop. And so that became the original model of Brotherhood Crusade, helping people help themselves. In doing so, there were a number of things that happened. One was Brotherhood Crusade actually became the first National Black United. Today, there are 23 chapters of the National Black United Fund across the country. But Brotherhood Crusade was the first, and still the original National Black United Fund. Dr. Vermont also campaigned fought against the Combined Federal Campaign. Now, if you're familiar with the Combined Federal Campaign, you know, that's where the federal government has their employees contribute funds out of their payroll, right? Here was the glitch though. At the time, the only people who were able to receive funds out of that payroll was the United Way. And the United Way wasn't doing anything in the communities of color.
They were taking pictures.
Pardon?
They were taking pictures.
Right? They were, The other irony was simply this. Of course, back then, individuals of color who were professionals couldn't get jobs in private sector because same racial, racial inequity opportunities, structural institutional racism. Right?
Still living it.
So, in order for them to get jobs in their fields, they had to go work for whom? The government, at a much reduced commensuratory rate, right? So here you had individuals who were highly encouraged, and I'll say highly encouraged, to provide funding out of their paycheck to the Combined Federal Campaign that was serving entities that didn't serve their community. So all of a sudden they're coming up with 5-10% of their income coming out of their payroll to go to an organization that's not doing anything for the community. And so Dr. Vermont said that doesn't make any sense. We're going, and so he sued the federal government, and he actually won the case.
Well done.
Right?
That's not...
At a cost. He died of a heart attack at the age of 45 from all of the hate and vitriol and everything else that came out of that.
Always a cost.
Right? Always a cost.
Always a cost.
Right? And we talked today about, whatever we want, there's a sacrifice that somebody has to make. Right? And some of that sacrifice is life. Right? But today, just in the city of Los Angeles, there are 17,000 organizations who benefit from the Combined Federal Campaign as a result of that effort. Not only that, but that was the model that was used on municipalities across the country, so cities across the country, as well as in private organizations. And so the employee giving campaigns that exist now all came out of that original model that Dr. Vermont fought from, right?
What
In
history
that,
book is that in?
pardon?
What history book is that in?
It's going to be, it's in the history book it's a history book that I'm writing that I haven't finished, right? So when Dr. Vermont moved to do his work in the National Black United Fund, Danny Bakewell, who was working with him and was part of the Black Congress, took over Brotherhood Crusade, right? Now, what people don't know about Danny was Danny did this without compensation. He just took over Brotherhood Crusade without compensation, right? Then so many incredible acts that Danny was associated with, just a couple. We all know about the Rose Bowl and the Rose Bowl. I mean, it's big, right? But here's the truth of the matter, and I tell the story this way. A few years ago, my wife and I went to the Rose Bowl game that featured Texas and Alabama, right? And I stood in the line for a burrito. She said she wanted a burrito. I said, okay. So I stood in the line for a burrito. The line was long, right? And I'm in the back of the line, and I just happened to be wearing my Brotherhood Crusade shirt. And so as I'm standing in line, the gentleman at the very front, who owned the business, said, "You, Brotherhood Crusade, come here." And I'm like, I don't want to lose my spotlight. He said, no, come here. And so I walk up, and he says, "You with Brotherhood Crusade?" I said, "Well, yes, sir." He says, "What do you want?" I said, "Sir, I know you got a big old line." He said, "No. What do you want?" And I said, well, I told him, gave him my order. He said, no, here, take this and take this and take these churros as well. And I had this look on my face, and he saw this look. And he said, if it wasn't for Brotherhood Crusade, I wouldn't be here with this business at the Rose Bowl. He said, this line stays this way the entire time. I make a quarter of my entire annual income from the Rose Bowl activities. And that was because of Brotherhood Crusade. So what had happened was Danny Bakewell and Brotherhood Crusade, but Danny Bakewell, at the time when the Rose Bowl committee was number one, was all white men. And then number two, would not allow any business of color to operate in anything to the Rose Bowl, right? Even though they paid their business taxes like everyone else. That was their standard. And so Danny said, no, we're protesting this. And he drove up Orange Grove in front of the Rose Bowl Committee house, turns his car around, blocks traffic, gets out, locks the car, takes the keys and throws them as far as he can. And traffic was blocked on one of the busiest streets in Pasadena, Orange Grove, until the police came and got him and towed the car away. And the Rose Bowl committee said, you can do what you want, we're not going to change anything, and you're not going to be able to make us. But the reality was, because of those protests that they had, people rose up and said, no, this isn't right. And the Rose Bowl committee then was integrated for the first time with an Asian American woman, an African American woman, and an integrated committee that has never happened in the history of the Rose Bowl before. Right? Then he also helped to facilitate, and so oftentimes you'll see a picture of Snoop Dogg and Tupac standing in front of the Brotherhood Crusade building. Right? That was when Danny facilitated bringing everyone together to say, hey, look, let's vote and let's stop the violence. And so part of the ceasefire was facilitated by Brotherhood Crusade, Danny Bakewell, and that, right? The first women's shelter, domestic violence women's shelter in South Los Angeles facilitated, right? The first black-owned grocery store in South Los Angeles facilitated, and so that history continued on until about 17 years ago, when Danny decided to pass the torch of Brotherhood Crusade, and so he selected the person to pass the torch as Cherise Bremont, the daughter of Walter Bremont, right? Now, here's the interesting thing about Cherise. So Cherise, when she was coming up, people knew her father and everything. But it wasn't when her father unfortunately died when she was 18. And it wasn't until she went to the funeral. I said, why are these thousands of people? Because you're going to see thousands of people at the funeral. Why are these thousands of people here? And she recognized the power and the significance of what her father was doing and what the Brotherhood Crusade was. So there, as she's just about ready to go, just entering college, was the first time she truly recognized the significance of Brotherhood Crusade. So when she completed college, she came back to Danny and she said, Danny, I want to work for Brotherhood Crusade. He's like, no, you don't. She said, yes, I do. This is important. He says, you realize you got to start from the bottom and go. She said, that's what I want to do. And so Cherise had been working for Brotherhood Crusade, and then she went to work for Assemblywoman Margaret Archie Hudson, and then came back to work for Brotherhood Crusade and for the entities of Brotherhood Crusade, the African American Community Center, Sabria's Castle Fund, right, which are other entities that were supporting out of Brotherhood Crusade. Sabria's Castle Fund, by the way, was created because Danny's daughter, Sabria, had to come to the kingdom. And so this was about creating opportunities of fun, these castles, these fun castles with all kinds of toys and opportunities to the people who were who were suffering from fatal diseases, young people suffering from fatal diseases, would have fun opportunity in their lives as they're in the hospital. Right? Of course, Mothers in Action also spurred out of what we could say in that work, right? And so all of these entities spurring out of Black Business Development Fund, etc., spurring out of Brotherhood Crusade, looking at how do we significantly impact the communities, and especially our communities of color, right? So Cherise comes back and she's working in these areas, cutting her teeth. And I'd say all the time, people are like, well, why are you doing this? You can be going doing something else. But, the significance of what her father started and the legacy that she got to continue was right there, right? And so when Daniel decided to step down 17 years ago, he selected Cherise, and people were like, is he going to be able to do this? But the reality was, what you don't measure in people is heart, desire, and you don't measure that in people, right? We don't see everything. We just see, it's like with athletes, right? You see an athlete, oh, he's a tremendous athlete. But the question becomes, in that moment, when it's necessary, when it's needed, when all the pressure is on, what happens then, right? And we see some of the most talented, skilled, incredible athletes in that moment not be able to perform. And that's not a slide on them. That's a lot of pressure. But it's just that there are some people who are able to step up to the moment and some who just aren't, right? It's just part of our lives. Across our boards, we've experienced that, right? And it's not a slide on anyone, it's just the nature of the beast. But it oftentimes comes down to what's deep down inside you, right? Some people call it grit, other people, but what's deep inside her? And with Cherise, what was deep inside her is this incredible legacy of her father, the dainty income. And so Cherise took over and has grown the company and grown the organization 11-fold in that time. Has taken the organization to spaces that people never imagined. But one of the first things that she did was she said, you know what? At the time, the organization had been in since 35 years. More like almost 40 years. And she said, let's go back and relook at what we're doing. Which is a brave move, right? I know we've been the so-called successful organization for a long time, but let's go back and look at what we're doing. What makes us effective and why?
You gotta look at that game film, right?
Gotta look at that game film, right? And so she did a needs assessment across South Los Angeles. And one of the interesting things that she found was this. In South Los Angeles, 35% of the population were individuals under the age of 18. To put that in context, in West LA, where we are now, only 7% of the population are individuals under 18. The community with the next highest number of individuals or next highest percentage of individuals under 18 only had 23%. But in South Los Angeles, it was 35% and bigger than that. If you connected that 35% with their circle of influence, you would impact 91% of the community. Now, here's the kicker. South Los Angeles isn't like Harlem or other pockets. South Los Angeles is over 1 million people. And so you're talking about 35% of over 1 million people being young people under the age of 18 and being able to influence 91% of those individuals if you just took care of them and their circles of influence.